Today on the Broadway Shuffle, an underrated national signing day for Joey McGuire, a new offensive coordinator on the horizon, and Texas Tech basketball tested at home. Our thoughts and opinions next on the Broadway Shuffle. Episode 32 of the Broadway Shuffle. Excuse me. Wow. Got a lot to talk about tonight. My voice is a little hoarse. We've got Conrad, Clayton, and Zyler. I'm Brennan. Welcome to the show. If this is your first time, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. This is one of the only Texas Tech podcasts/shows where you will get live reactions, athlete administration interviews, and our wacky thoughts and opinions every week, Monday and Thursday. You will not want to miss an episode. Well, boys, Z, hope y'all are doing well. I want to go to you first, man. You've got some semi-breaking rumor, hot news on the horizon, courtesy of a source of yours that happened to pull a prank that turned out to maybe give us the answer on who our next offensive coordinator might be. Why don't you go into that and we'll discuss from there.
Yeah, and I never want to give people the impression that all of us are extremely well sourced. We know a few people in the athletic department or on various sports teams, but a lot of the stuff that we get comes from, other websites or other things like that. But in this particular instance, we did have somebody that got us information, and I'm willing to disclose the story. It's actually really funny. It involves my brother, who happens to be a pilot. We had caught news that there was a plane departing from Salt Lake City to Lubbock, Texas. And for those who don't know, the reason that might be pertinent is our rumored top offensive coordinator target, Mack Leftwich, is down to two jobs, allegedly, the Utah offensive coordinator job and the Texas Tech job. He was alleged to be in Utah today. The timing of that was kind of in dispute, but as soon as a plane got notified or noticed that was leaving Salt Lake City to Lubbock, it's a very specific destination for a plane to be going, people's kind of attention shot up, and I texted my brother and I was like, "Hey man, is there any way to figure out like who's on the flight log, like who's on the passenger log? I know they have to note all those things, but it doesn't have to." He told me, "No, it doesn't have to be public. Nobody will ever put it on there." Well, I was like, "Dang." I was like, "Well, do you think you can figure out who is maybe on that flight?" And he's like, "Well, I know some people up there at Lubbock Aero, and maybe I'll give them a call." I say, "Okay, that sounds good." I didn't really think anything of it. And then he texts me, probably 2 hours later, and he goes, "Hey, does the name Mick or Mac Leftwich mean anything to you?" I was like, "Bro, yes, that means a lot to me." And I was like, "How did you figure that out?" He's like, "Yeah, that's allegedly who's on the plane." I said, How did you get that information?" He's like, "Well, I called up and there were two girls that I usually knew and neither of them were there. And so the lady asked what I needed. I said, "Oh, nothing. I was just seeing if they were there." So he hung up and thought about another way to get the information. And so he called again and said, "Hey, there should be a John in the lobby wearing tech gear. Can I talk to him?" And she said, let me go check." She went and said, "There's nobody named John." And he said, "Oh, well, it's somebody else. There should be a guy that they're waiting on. It should be something named Mack Leftwich. I need to talk to him about when he's arriving." And so somebody got on the phone and he said, "Hey, has Matt gotten there yet?" And they said, "No, he lands in 5 minutes." And Jed immediately just hung up the phone. So he sniffed out who was going to be there on the flight. Really, really impressive stuff. Made me laugh. We got that information. I was giddy because we were all worried that he was going to Utah. I got that text and I was like, "Wow, maybe Mack Leftwich will be your offensive coordinator." Rumored to be in Lubbock right now and confirmed to be in Lubbock by a lot of different sources. So by the time you're watching this, he may be confirmed as our offensive coordinator. Maybe he's just interviewing, but we do know that he's in town, and hopefully he is announced as your offensive coordinator very, very soon.
Yeah, Conrad, you like Mack Leftwich. Tell us why.
Well, I first must say that I didn't know Jet Buchanan had a Sherlock Holmes slant to him, but he is a magnificent detective and found out that information in a way that I would never have thought to do that. So kudos to Jet, loyal listener of the show. Appreciate you and thank you for sharing that information with us. I like Mac a lot. I mean, I think first of all, I need to say this: he's 30 years old. 330. That means he was born in 1994. Brennan, Clayton, Zyler, and myself are all around the ripe age of 28 years old. We are sitting here on this Texas Tech podcast, talking to each other, hoping that somebody chooses to listen. This guy is interviewing for $1 million offensive coordinator job at a Big 12 school and will very much, very likely be a top a head coaching candidate, in 3-4 years at some point. He's a bright young offensive mind, has had a lot of success at Texas State. He seems to be wanted by a lot of programs, and so that's just a little snippet of who he is and what he's like. But he seems to be a really dynamic guy, really good leader, innovative play caller, runs a version of the veer and shoot kind of off the browse tree a little bit. So he's a big deal. Led Texas State to good things in 2023 and 2024, and so you can see why a lot of schools would want him. Zyler, do you have anything else to add on the schematic standpoint about Mack Leftwich?
Yeah, I'm not a huge into the schematic stuff yet. I don't like to dive too deeply in case I like the stuff too much and then he goes to a different job. I don't want to be thinking that another team got a really good offensive coordinator. So I'll get into that a little bit later. But I think the biggest testament to him is there's a lot of schools that want him. Utah wanted him, Houston wanted him, Arizona wanted him. A lot of Big 12 schools are after him, and hopefully you're the one that kind of gets to land him. But very dynamic offense. They did really well at Texas State this year. So I'm excited to see. I trust Joey on his, coordinator hires, and hopefully this ends up being a good piece for us.
Yeah, Clayton. First of all, before I go to you, Conrad, we've got 2 years until we're 30, and we might be millionaires, but I think you're selling us a little short there, man. It's we've got time. We
could. And speaking of becoming millionaires, if there's anybody listening that would like to sponsor the show and help us get to that millionaire status, just shoot us a DM on our Instagram account. Email us. We are taking sponsorship offers right now as we speak. You might be able to get it for a little bit cheaper than you think. So let us know. We want to be a millionaire. We want to all be millionaires by the time we're 30, and we've got a long way to go. So help us out.
You'd be surprised at how cheap we are, actually.
Yeah, you would.
If you're wondering, yeah.
Hey, my wife would not be surprised.
Yeah. That's true.
Hey, one thing I will say though, last 8 to 9 days, the Broadway Shuffle has grown by about 40% in our subscriber base and our viewers. So thank you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate it. It's been awesome. It's been a ton of fun doing this, and that just makes it adds a little bit. That's not why we do it, but it's fun to see that people like listening. So thank you guys. Thank you for commenting, doing all that. It's been a lot of fun, and we enjoy hearing what you guys think. So thank you.
Yeah. Well done, Clayton. Mack Leftwich. Sounds like he's in Lubbock. I've seen that he might be at Las Brisas. I've seen he might be going to Chimmy's to do the Broadway Shuffle after this. I mean, there's a lot of rumors flying around. What are your thoughts on him? And if it's not him, who should we look out for?
Yeah, I really am a big fan of Leftwich. His numbers at Texas State are super impressive. He's been nominated for the Broyles Award 2 years in a row for the best assistant in college football. His offense have been really balanced, rushing and passing. I think he was top 30 in both of those this season. They had a better offense than Tech this past season by the numbers. So I'd be a huge fan of him. If it's not him, I think depending on what I've heard that Spavital, I think we've all heard that he's already turned it down. So if he's not available, I would prefer the Tulane coordinator, Craddock. I think he's a young up and comer. He runs a good offense. I'd probably be just as happy with him as Leftwich, although just like we said, a lot of other schools in the Big 12 want Leftwich. So of course I'd rather have him just for the fact that they don't have him.
Yep.
Man, it's crazy. Conrad, or go ahead. Sorry, you have a thought.
Well, Joey did say in his National Signing Day press conference earlier today, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit, that he expected to have something done by tomorrow, meaning Thursday, the day that you're watching this, listening to this, wherever you get your podcasts, or Friday. And so the fact that Leftwich is in Lubbock right now, confirmed by multiple sources, makes me optimistic that it is him. So I think that Joey said that, and then it worked out this way with, him arriving late this evening and, obviously last night if you're watching this tomorrow morning. But thinking that makes me think that he had him in mind when he said that. I don't know. I could be wrong, but that's just what I inferred from that comment he made.
Yeah, we don't have any prank calls going into the athletic office to confirm that like we do the airport. But if you're curious about how we get our sources, we do go to extreme lengths to find out information for you guys. It's the least we can do for our loyal listeners. It's interesting looking at the youth of some of these guys. I mean, Kitley was 33. Arbuckle, who just signed at OU, was at Washington State, kind of a good Kitley disciple as well, too, which is crazy to say because you'd think Kitley's too young to have disciples, but he does. Is 29, and now Leftwich is 30. Like, these are young dudes that are running big programs and big offenses. it's
Yeah.
it's crazy to see. I mean, Lincoln Riley was young, Cliff was young when he got the job. A lot of young offensive minds up and coming in the sport. It's fun to watch.
Yep.
It is interesting how that's like on the offensive side of the ball specifically. It's a lot of young guys, even in the NFL, like McVay, LaFleur. Those are all young guys, and then I feel like the defensive guys are all older. Just interesting.
Brennan, I don't know why you think that Zach Kitley's too young to have disciples. I mean, Jesus was 30 and he got 12.
Gosh,
So
Conrad.
I'm just trying to keep things lighthearted. So I don't know why you think he's too young.
I knew that was coming.
You knew that was coming. I was not
I
expecting
knew
that.
it. I knew it was coming from Conrad.
Dude. You're right. You're right. It hopefully Kitley outlives him. He's on his 33rd year, so we'll see what happens.
Hey, what we really need to be concerned about is when is the Broadway Shuffle going to start spawning disciples? Like, where are the shufflers? We'll call them our little shufflers.
Did I just make Conrad's tearing up over there,
Dude? Hopefully, dude. Okay, sorry, I should not have said that.
I'm just saying.
What do you mean? Okay.
I'm saying hopefully Kitley doesn't die at the age of 33 is what I'm saying.
Well, Jesus isn't dead, so.
Well, okay. We'll get into a theology conversation later. Let's get back to you never know where you're going on this show. Let's get back to where were we? Offense.
Coach Leftwich.
Yeah, it's just interesting, because there's so much youth, and I think for your program it's exciting. I think, what we've talked about Kitley, you can see our reaction to Kitley signing with FAU and all that on our channel as well, but I think it's good to kind of bring another young offensive mind in. I think they're more relatable to these players. I think you see what Dillingham is doing at Arizona State. A lot of these young guys do find success. On the offensive side of the ball, maybe defense needs a little bit more experience in scheming things, where offense you can get pretty creative and unique and like the veer and shoot. There's always these different versions of the air raid or of the option or of the shoot. They all put their unique little spin on it. And so Leftwich did really well at Texas State. If he is our offensive coordinator, and by Thursday he might be, it'll be exciting to see what he does and maybe what quarterback or what personnel fits him best, and it'll be exciting to see that as well. So, Speaking
of quarterbacks, it's interesting that the Texas State QB flipped to Utah if he ends up becoming Tex. I wonder, did he think that the Utah thing was a done deal, or does that have nothing to do with it? It's just funny to think about that QB going to Utah and then his coach not actually ending up there.
Yeah, and it very well could end up that Leftwich is not your OC. I want to make sure that we're clear on that. We could be talking 2 days from now about Cade Bell or something like that as your offensive coordinator. I do think you'll have something within the next 48 hours, though. That's what Joey said, and like Conrad already talked about. So. Yeah, really, I like the young guy hire. I think there's such high ceilings. These guys could be the next great thing in college football. Now, there is, I think, a lower floor. This guy's coordinated an offense for 1 year. If this goes poorly, we'll look back and be like, what in the world were we thinking hiring a guy that had only coordinated an offense 1 year to lead a Big 12 program? But I like taking this swing. I think it's worth it. I think the upside's there. There's downside. There's definitely downside, but I think the risk is definitely worth it.
If he is your OC, I did not watch much of Texas State, but was a mobile quarterback a part of that system?
I couldn't tell you, man.
I couldn't tell you either.
Yeah. It'd just be interesting to see.
Brennan likes mobile.
You never know.
Quarterbacks.
Do you have a mobble quarterback on your roster right now?
Somebody
that
those
guys.
Yeah, you can't.
Brown's
Brown, I think, is still. Has he entered the portal yet? I don't know. Anyways, it'll be interesting to see. I'm just kidding. I like to find any way I can to plug Will Hammond, but we'll see. I digress from that. So. And we'll just go right to transfer portal updates. So we'll see what happens to Leftwich, but there is some current news going on. Jordan Brown has entered the transfer portal. He was one of your receivers this year. Did not have much production, but he will be entering. Brady Boyd had entered the transfer portal as well, another receiver. And there is another receiver, I believe, as well that has entered the portal, but and I, blanking. But I think that guy's name is Micah Hudson. And Joey said something interesting in his presser that he had reached out to Hudson, texted him that hope he stays. Clayton, any chance Hudson's coming back?
I'd put it really, really low. I think he's probably gone. But I mean, I don't blame Joey for reaching out and for trying to keep him, regardless of his production this year. what may or may not have happened behind the scenes. He is your best recruit in school history. He's obviously talented. If you can keep a guy like that in the program for another year, I mean, you have to at least try, especially with, like you said, those two players in the portal, and then obviously losing Josh Kelly as well. So there's a big need at receiver. So, I mean, you got to do what you can to at least give it a shot.
Z, any thoughts on, would you even want? I mean, the fan base is so torn after the last couple of days since it's been released. There has been rumors coming about him. Caleb Rogers had tweeted about production over potential. There's been a lot of beef coming out. So, words flying from multiple alumni, even current players, staff. Would it be even good to have him? I mean, I know he's a 5-star, but like at this point, does it seem like the relationship is already a little broken, like too broken to mend?
Yeah, I've heard that he hasn't even been in Lubbock in a few weeks. So I think if he did return, I think there's going to have to be some reconciliation there. Some bridges are going to have to be mended. I mean, I'll never say never. We had a player get arrested for breaking into a house and trying to steal a safe, and he was on our roster, 2 years after that. Shout out Dakota Allen. So there's definitely reconciliation that's available here at the University of, I guess, Texas Tech University.
Micah
I almost called it
Hudson's
UTT.
to Eastern Mississippi Community College.
Yeah,
and then
look for him on what was that Netflix show called?
Last Chance You.
Last Chance You. Imagine how funny that would be. But yeah, we'll see. I would not count on it. He is not in my estimation for what our 2025 roster looks like right now. If he ends up being there, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a money thing. Like, do you think it's it seems like this was more of a Texas Tech problem on his end than it was like, I just want more money. I feel like Texas Tech would almost match if it was just money thing, probably wouldn't let him walk. Do you think there's any validity to that statement?
Yeah, I probably think so. I mean, there's no way to know. I'm not in those conversations with the NIL groups and with Micah, obviously. Why would I be? But yeah, I don't think
you're a co-host of the Broadway Shuffle, man.
Yeah, they were like, "Hey, we need this guy in here. Why don't you negotiate?" No, I don't think money will be the reason that he leaves if he does end up choosing to leave Texas Tech. I think he'll be maybe looking for a fresh start, and maybe we'll be too. We will be too. So,
Conrad,
see, that's just what I. Go ahead, Brennan.
I was gonna go to you and say, you said we don't need him on our last episode on our reaction to Hudson leaving. So you still feel that way?
I mean, a 5-star receiver is not as valuable to your program as a 5-star at basically any other position because you can get other serviceable receivers. I'm not saying Micah's not a great talent. I just, if this is not about money, I'm sure he was paid way too much money to come here in the first place based on what the production he gave you was. Not saying you didn't have to pay him that, you did, but he obviously didn't live up to that due to injury and other reasons as well. Man, forgive me. I'm getting choked up talking about this because this is so deep. You don't see a 5-star like this very often. We've never seen a 5-star at our program. But the reality of the situation is, if he don't want to be here, I don't want him here. I mean that. Like, you can get other receivers that are going to be serviceable. You had Jordan Brown and Brady Boyd leave. I would love to have Micah Hudson here. I would love to see what he can be because he is going to be a good player. I just think it's interesting though, thinking about a guy like Micah. You go somewhere else. You go to LSU. That's a rumored destination. Are you really thinking that you're going to play immediately? Like, I mean, maybe you are. I mean, maybe, but you got to learn that playbook too, huh? That's another playbook. It's not the same playbook you learned here. I mean, playbooks are hard to learn. You got to know, like, A does this, B does this, C does this, and D does this, Micah. You got to know all of those different things. And so I'm just saying, you got to learn all those different things. Those are complicated things. Like, those are not, it's not simple to learn. And so you have to consider what that looks like. And when you think about going and switching places, you just have to really be aware of what's going on. I just hope that he didn't necessarily, burn a bridge here because we would take him back. It's just the chemistry thing. I think you can mend it, but again, I'm not counting on it. He was very quick to say he was intending to enter the portal. So,
yep.
Those are my initial
Clayton,
thoughts.
were you expecting Conrad to give Bible lessons, playbook lessons, and everything in between on the Broadway Shuffle tonight?
Definitely not. I missed that in the show doc for tonight.
Yeah, I did. I'm not seeing this in my notes, but
we are a
Conrad,
show. We are a
to
show.
be fair, he's going to have to learn a brand new playbook anyway if he does stay here
That's
because
true.
we don't have the same OC.
That's true, man. Ugh, it's gonna be tough.
But
It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be real
the
tough.
last
Hey, I do have a
receiver, the
question.
left tech for LSU
Hold
worked
on,
out
wait.
really well. So
Yeah,
Wait,
Jonathan
what about
Giles.
Jonathan Giles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where did he go?
Yeah, Micah, Jonathan Giles. Where is he now? Jonathan, if
Yeah.
you're listening, come on the show anytime. But also, I do think it's interesting though, thinking about leaving and going somewhere else in terms of this. Like, how does that work with NIL, different things like that? I'm not really sure. But also, if Micah has not been in Lubbock in a couple weeks, how's that working with classes? I mean, these kids do still have to go to class, right?
I said that allegedly. I do not have confirmation of that. That's the hot rumor on the street. I don't want to say that definitively.
Let's
like
just
I know where
yeah,
Micah
yeah.
is.
Well, let's just say if it's true. If it's true, I mean, I guess you can join online, but I guess it is 2024.
I mean,
so
he won't be the first college kid to fail his first semester at Tech. That's
very true.
hardly a rare occurrence.
There might even be someone on this podcast that did that.
it wasn't me. Who was it, Brennan?
I can't speak for everyone here, but I do believe that someone here did flunk out their first semester and it required them to stay an extra year, but I can't confirm who it is. Maybe I need to have Jet call the airport to find out.
It's because LSU was reaching out about coming to play football.
Yes,
for him.
I had a lot of decisions to make.
We see your talent as a podcaster. We need you at that.
Yes, sorry, biology. I won't be able to make it this morning. I've got to go practice my podcast voice. Well, there are some other big things that happened this week as well. National Signing Day. So some future stars maybe. And surprisingly, going into this day, 17 recruits, no crazy 5-star like Micah Hudson part of this class. It kind of felt a little underwhelming. It wasn't your most attractive class, but at the end of this, you were able to flip a couple people and, get some guys that could hopefully one day bring a lot of production to your program. Z, you want to go into National Signing Day a little bit and how this might actually turn out to be somewhat of an underrated class.
Yeah, I think there's some guys here. This is not up to the 23 or the 24 class standards. It's a little bit smaller, and that's fine. But I do think there are some good pieces. If you didn't follow high school recruiting like I, did this entire cycle, there were some guys that you missed that ended up going to different places in conference, or you got down to the end and you were getting them ready to get committed, and then Michigan would swoop in or A&M would swoop in. So unfortunate for the staff there. That was super unfortunate. But there are some guys that I really like. The one that I'm actually really excited for is a kid named Elias Gillen. He is from up north. He's from South Dakota. He is 310 pounds, 6'6". He's going to play left tackle for you. He's not going to play this year, but that's a piece that I'm really, really excited about. The other two guys that I think there's actually several I think are interesting. Michael Dever is the Lubbock Cooper kid. His highlights are unreal. The dude has crazy ball skills. He's an elite athlete. Very, very fast player. He's rated as a top 300 player on some of the sites. Really good piece. And then Leighton Stone, the son of Tom Stone, the soccer coach here, also a really good player. Kind of like a smaller Dylan Cantrell starter kit. Talks a ton of mess on the field. I've watched him several times at Friendship. He's a really, really good player. Tristan Gentry is probably the best piece out of this class. He's the Stephenville wide receiver. Really good player. He is very quick. It remains to be seen what he's going to do, in short intermediate routes, what he's going to be able to do in some of the more technical, refined route running aspects of the receiver game. But his highlights are essentially just a ton of deep balls. They threw it up to him and he would be wide open. So, why really change it? A couple other pieces that you added that are really nice. Lloyd Jones, they call him Chubba. Or Chubby, he's going to be your quarterback. He's got a knee injury. He's going to be out for the spring and the summer, so he won't really be available. I'm not expecting him to really contribute much in 25 anyway, but that's who you did add at the quarterback position, 4-star guy on several of the sites. And then Bryson Jones was the player with a ton of offers. He had lots of SEC and Big Ten offers, I think 30 plus. He's going to be a receiver for you. Not as much on the defensive side. You only signed one defensive tackle. The one guy that you did add really, really late was a guy named Connor Carty from Prosper. He's a Rivals top 250 guy. So 4-star player. He had Oregon offers, Ole Miss offers, A&M, UT. I mean, he had everything, and you ended up flipping him at the last minute. So that was a really nice add to kind of finish the class. Again, it's probably going to finish around 38th, 40 in the national rankings. I still think there's some pieces that are going to contribute for you in 2 to 3 years, but it's a nice little foundation. You didn't punt on the offensive line like you had in years past. You signed 6 of them in this class, so glad to see that. They're building for the future. Wish we would have taken a couple more defensive tackles, but good building class. Hope that you can kind of rebound a little bit in 26 and maybe look at a top 30 class. That would be something that'd be really awesome. So,
Clayton, thoughts on this, overall takeaways, and I want to ask you a question too. How big is National Signing Day now? I mean, with the portal, it feels like National Signing Day. Like I almost didn't even know it was coming up until a couple weeks ago. Usually, you would follow it, track it, because recruiting was so important. For your program now, it feels like most of your biggest needs are going to be filled through the portal. Obviously, you want to develop these kids, and you still need kids to come through the pipeline. But any surprises out of this class for you? And then do you feel like it really matters for your program going into next season in terms of like what you're going to be putting on the field?
Yeah, in terms of next season, I don't know how much it matters, but it for sure matters in building a program. You have to have the foundation of high school kids, pretty much, unless you're Deion Sanders. You can't just rely on the portal. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how many of these guys, if any, will get on the field next year, but I do really like the receivers in this class. I feel like that's, probably the strong point of this class. And then, like Zyler said, taking 6 offensive linemen, flipping McCarty or Cardi, can't remember his last name, at the last minute. That's a good add. And then the tight end that we flipped from Arizona, I feel like getting those two at the on signing day really helped solidify this class, like Zyler said. And it's a smaller class, so of course we're not going to be, top 20 with just taking whatever it was, 18, 19 guys. But
sure,
you need to have, these 3- and 4-star guys in your program for years. This is like the foundation of your program. And then the portal obviously helps you add on top of that in areas that you may be a little thin.
Conrad, anything to add on that end?
My favorite player from this class is Tristan Gentry, the Stephenville receiver. Joey told the story in his presser today about how Coy Aiken was actually the one to offer him a scholarship. For those who don't know, Coy Aiken, number 8 receiver, typically plays the X for you. He went to Stephenville, and he was apparently teammates with Tristan. And so at camp, when Tristan came out to Lubbock, Joey or Blanchard, I forget who it was, told Coy to go tell Tristan, hey, you're offered by Texas Tech. And so that's just such a cool story, right? Like that's awesome. I mean, that would be such an emotional moment. Hey, you get to go to college for free at Texas Tech, the best university in the world, and they're also going to pay you because of the NIL world we live in. I mean, what a cool moment for Tristan. And the kid is fast too. I think Joey said something about him running like a 4.33 or something like that in his presser day. So excited about that and what that will bring. Maybe he should wear number 1. I'm not sure. Maybe next year.
Maybe, man.
We're not going back to this. We got to keep moving.
We got to keep.
I know.
I know. We'll keep moving forward. Yeah,
I'm just trying to get you guys to laugh. Okay, we got to laugh on the Broadway Shuffle. We do that a lot, but we need to do it more.
Well, you're doing a good job tonight. And just to clarify as well, what my question to Clayton wasn't necessarily like, do you need to get production immediately out of the high school class? But with Joey McGuire, a big reason you hired him was his pipeline within Texas and his time at, as a Texas coach and winning state championships and building those relationships through his time at Baylor. And I know he's a big high school guy. Like, I know Joey doesn't want this to be Colorado. I know he doesn't want it to be, but you see though, like what Arizona State did and what Colorado did, frankly, and how programs did go get 40, 50, 60 guys in the portal and compete for, a Big 12 title. And so it's an interesting debate to have when you're thinking about like what, how important is it now in this era to be building a recruiting pipeline through high school, or just go get a bunch of Josh Kellys and Caleb Douglases and then try to find some studs on the defensive side and offensive side of the ball. I mean, it's curious to kind of see like, though, to knowing Joey's so big on high school, he gets Hudson, he gets these guys, you kind of feel like maybe this is going to be the start of building classes. You do kind of digress a little bit this year, though, on that expectation. Was that expected, though?
Yeah, I think there was some what you hear from people that are kind of connected to the program. There was maybe a lot of promises that were being made by some of our conference rivals that they don't think they're necessarily going to be able to keep. You are one of only 2 programs in the Big 12 that have like publicly said we are going to do the max revenue sharing, which is upwards of $20 million. I think there were some things that were maybe out of our staff's control as to what they could offer this cycle that I don't think will necessarily be limited by next cycle. Now, I think you're still going to have the problem with SEC and Big Ten schools kind of being able to get whoever they want. That's going to continue to be a problem. But can you compete with TCU and Baylor for recruits? Those are going to be the guys that I'm always kind of measuring us against, and maybe now Arizona State, things like that. I think the ideal roster building strategy in my mind is you're taking 6 to 8 guys from the portal every year and like 20 kids from high school every year. A class of 26 to 28, you're going to lose a lot of guys through attrition. And maybe my numbers are a little bit off there, but that's how ideally I'd love to see it get built. Building depth through the high school ways is one, it's a cheaper way to do it. Portal guys are going to be really expensive. And then two, you're kind of getting to develop those guys and see what they're doing, let them learn the system. And I just think that's a much safer way to do it. You see with Florida State, when you build through the portal almost exclusively, it can go really well or it can go really, really badly. Their team was horrific this year. And the team before that they built through the portal was really, really good. So I just think relying on the portal is just such a risky strategy. It should be used to accentuate and help you fill holes on your roster, not necessarily construct your roster. Now, I think we are going to try to build an offensive line out of the portal this cycle. That's very risky. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But I don't think we need to build an elite unit. We just need to build an average unit. I think just that would be a huge step up for us. And so I'm a little more confident in that. But we're going to try to do it on both sides of the ball. And that's just, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
Do you, do you pay high school athletes NIL? Like, do you start paying them? Like I know Micah, Hudson, but like, do you separate that budget? I don't know this answer. Like, do you have a budget for high school kids incoming and then you got your transfer portal budget?
I have no idea.
I have no idea how that works.
Well, if you're Oregon, you just tell a kid, name your price and you just give it to them because Phil Knight's going to write you a check. But for normal schools, like Texas Tech, I wouldn't, I mean, that's just so risky, right? Like
that's what I mean.
It's unproven. And the thing is, like, they can get up and leave after one. Like, there's no contract with it. Like, the schools are completely exposed in every way now. It's like you just have no clue what these kids are going to be. Like, are they going to go to class? Are they going to show up on time? Like, they have a way to track all those things. But it's like, I just don't. You do track. You do pay them something, but I don't know how you determine that.
Yeah, because you hear like
it's graduated.
Like the Ewers, Ohio State thing. Like he got paid barely play. Like but I don't know if it starts. My point is like when you're on campus. Are there any like do you have to?
It has to be when you're on campus. You're not getting money while you're going to
like once you sign. Yeah, but it's just like are there any? Is there any criteria to like you have to attend class or you have to do anything or here's a check for $100,000? Like it doesn't. A lot of it doesn't make sense to me.
I think a lot of it is tied to, like, I think most of your payment is done when you finish the first semester. Like, I think there's something that you get, and obviously you're still a student athlete that gets, you get your scholarship and you get your room and your board and all of those things. But I think a lot of your payment is after finals in December. Now, I may be completely wrong there, but that's what I thought I remember is a lot of those guys have to wait until the semester ends. But once again, I'm not privy to those items. I just do know that certain guys stay long enough to make sure that they get those final checks. But once again, not privy to that. Maybe we can have somebody on that can explain that to us.
Yeah. If you have any suggestions there in the YouTube comments, we love to hear from you, by the way. Please comment. We've got some loyal listeners that keep us accountable when we're wrong, which happens quite often. Shout out to Kim Coulter, 6. And then there's people that
and the Colorado fans
and the Colorado fans. So we are all for being corrected. We don't know everything. We don't pretend to know everything, and that's why we're here to share our thoughts. And you might, but if we're wrong, we're wrong. And so we'll get to, but we appreciate everyone in the comments as well, and we love to hear from you. So Texas Tech basketball, tough one tonight. Surprising a little bit. You managed to get out a win, but and if we are recording on a late Wednesday night, you'll be hearing this on Thursday and Friday and Saturday. But DePaul comes in undefeated, but this was one of the worst teams in college basketball last year. They did hire a great coach in Chris Holtman from Ohio State, had time at Butler, success there as well too. And you get out to a very impressive start, and then they get hot, and you're almost losing at halftime, and then you kind of go on a run in second half without JT Toppin. Any concern the basketball team is 7-1, but like Clayton, any concern for the team moving forward? I mean, kind of a so-so win at home against DePaul tonight. Anything we should be alarmed about?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask because I did not watch a second of this game. But as box score watcher, saying that we won by 14 without Toppin, just on the surface level, no, I'm not concerned. But I do hope that we get him back for A&M because I do not think that we'd be A&M without him.
Yeah, the Ken Palm spread was 14 at home, and that was including a projection with Toppin. So to beat them by that projection without Toppin, I think is good. That's an acceptable result for me. You were up by 1 at halftime, so to come out there and ultimately win by 14, I think is good. They made good adjustments defensively in the second half. You're still trying to figure out what you're doing on your ball screen coverage. I think we're really exposed to teams that pass well and that can shoot the 3 ball really well, like all teams are specifically, but teams that can kind of exploit that pretty effectively have shown a tendency to do that. St. Joe's obviously comes to mind. But yeah, I think it's a fine win. Get Toppin healthy. You managed to get a win. It's probably your second best win to the season to date. So I'll take it. That DePaul team significantly improved from last year. They're top 100 in KenPom, which if you look at that team last year, I think they were in the 300s, which is
They were.
For a power 4 team or a power 5 team. Yeah, 304th in KenPom last year. They went on I don't even know how to count this. They only won 3 games last year. That's unbelievable.
Like it was one of the worst teams in college basketball. Yeah.
Them and Louisville last year were 2 of the worst teams of all time. Literally.
So funny little trivia question. Who was the only other Power 5 team that they beat last year? Does anybody know? Not that that's just something that's top of mind for you, but you could probably guess if you were thinking of really bad Power 5 teams last year.
Baylor. Joking, obviously. Joking.
Any chance to get Baylor hated?
Clayton, I think you could get this. Think of some of the worst Power 5 teams last year. Like genuinely
it's
atrocious.
Not Louisville though.
It is Louisville. They beat Louisville last year.
Oh, there you go. Nice play,
dude. I remember that now that you say that. It was like the
Kenny
worst. Payne. Yeah, the worst Power 4 or Power 6 game of all time.
Yeah, and I don't think the games prior to conference, as long as Toppin's back, I think it's Central Florida is your first conference game, if I'm not mistaken. And so as long as you get Toppin back by then, the 31st of December, Central Florida. Like I know we want him for A&M. I know we want to beat A&M, but A&M's not going to define your run through the Big 12 conference and through March as much. So like, I hope we don't rush him back. I don't think they will, but yeah, it was interesting. I mean, DePaul shot the ball well tonight. And I thought that Chance McMillan and Darion Williams, their elevation this season is going to be key. And Chance looks awesome. Like this dude looks like he's improved a ton. He had 22 tonight and Williams had 20. So you're looking at those guys combining for 42 points, 11 rebounds. They both shot 50% from the field. Chance was 2 of 5 from 3. So those guys, as long as they're healthy and playing well, I think you'll be competitive. It's great to see them kind of take that next step towards just an offensive skill. It's been fun to watch. Conrad, your boy, by the way, Kevin Overton, your favorite player. He had 9 points and 6 rebounds today. So another fairly good. He only shot the ball 5 times. He was 3 of 5 from the field. So good win at home. You get the Aggies coming up, which will be a ton of fun on Sunday. I know Conrad, Clayton, you guys will be in attendance there in Fort Worth. And then you get 8 days off before you get Oral Roberts at home. So looking forward to getting the Aggies and excited for that neutral site game in Fort Worth. I think more Tech fans will be there though. Probably. Maybe. I don't know.
I don't think A&M fans care a whole lot.
Do they
about
care
basketball.
about basketball? Yeah. Do they care about anything other than gathering at midnight and yelling in each other's face?
They care about baseball. They were good at baseball last year.
The Aggie love in this podcast is making me sick. Stop it, Conrad.
We're moving on.
I was just stating a fact that they care about baseball. I don't know.
Enough. Too late.
Enough.
I just want to beat them. So JT Toppin, if you want to be a Texas Tech legend, come dunk on A&M on Sunday and help us win. Score 30.
Please. All right. What were you going to say?
A&M team plays the ugliest brand of basketball you have ever seen.
About to say that. I'm hoping that I don't have to gouge my eyes out after watching Zurich Phelps and Wade Taylor play basketball for 2 hours on Sunday.
Oh, dude, it's literally volleyball.
Didn't we want Wade Taylor at a time? Like,
there was rumors of that, but Zyler, did we?
Oh, man. Like, if I could have Wade Taylor or Pop Isaacs, I think I would take Wade Taylor, but I don't know. I think
I think-
in a vacuum, you'd rather
I
have
think
Wade
they
Taylor
both
than
are
not have
super
him.
sucky.
I never heard the Wade Taylor stuff from an actual tech source.
Yeah,
So I don't know how
Wait,
true
dude.
that
But
was.
when Wade Taylor is hot, it's like impossible to stop him. Like when he's hitting, it is
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Did Creighton beat Kansas? Did that end up
Yeah.
happening? Wow.
They did.
Oh my gosh.
Let's just pull up for good measure while we're here live on air what Pop Isaac's stat line in that game was, shall we? And I don't actually think Pop Isaacs is terrible. I just think that he's one of the most 76 to 63. Wow.
They kind of whooped him.
Well,
Just
Pop
for
cut
us
his hair
former
yet?
Tech fans. Oh my gosh, I spoke horribly about Pop Isaacs. You want to hear Pop's stat line from tonight?
oh my gosh.
I
saw
just
it.
got super humbled. Pop, I apologize. You are not sucky anymore, apparently. 27 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists on 10 of 15 shooting and 6 of 9 from 3.
Dude, he
My
never
goodness.
had a game that good.
He'll
at
go
Tech.
0 of
Wait,
11
what-
next week.
He's averaging 15 and 4 this year there at Creighton. Wow. I stand
I thought he was
corrected,
going
Pop.
to Nevada.
I apologize. Hope you're doing
Whoops.
well on and off the court this year, hopefully. So, okay, let's get to what's going around. Let's get to what's going on around
What's
the
going
country.
around the Bahamas?
What's going around in the Bahamas there this year? I wonder how Atlantis is doing this time of year. All right, so
I don't
it's
know.
conference-
Ask Avery.
it's I will, yeah. It's conference championship week. We've got a game that we are hoping to play in, but will not be there in Arlington. So do not go if you're planning on it. Iowa State and Arizona State in the Big 12. You've got Clemson, SMU, Georgia, Texas, Boise, UNLV, and what game am I missing? Oh, Penn State and Oregon.
And yeah,
And so
Dude,
lots of exciting games. I kind of want to get into a discussion here as we close the show on Z, since you already went to Tech Trivia, and you actually threw in a trivia question there. We're not going to finish that last, so threw that in there. So let's close the show with some good old-fashioned college football playoff committee discussion. Not necessarily related to Texas Tech, but nonetheless, I just know all of us here probably feel the same way when it comes to our views on this committee. Lots of key games. Big 12 will only be getting one team in. I can promise you a 10-3 Big 12 team will probably drop completely out of the top 25 once they lose, with how much of respect we have been given during this ranking reveal. So Z, why don't you go into your thoughts and expectations for the weekend? Which game are you most excited to watch, and how do you think the rankings will turn out?
oh, I can already tell you that an SEC team is going to sneak in there. A 3-loss SEC team will be in. There may be 2 of them. It may be Georgia, and one of Alabama, South Carolina, and Ole Miss will be in almost unequivocally. I think the only way that doesn't happen is if SMU wins and they're forced to. Because what would that be? That would be there's the 5 automatic bids. There's the 3 SEC or the Big Ten teams that are going to get in. That makes it 8. And then there's Miami, and then those other. Yeah, it's going to be a mess. But I just, if you listen to Ward Manuel talk about why he ranks teams a certain way, it makes absolutely no sense. He has no consistency between any of the teams. He uses some of the dumbest rankings imaginable, using top 25 rankings as a metric to evaluate teams when you rank the teams in the top 25 is an unbelievably bad way to do things. And also, beating a 27th ranked team on the road is still really impressive. Also, beating the number 1 team in the country on the road should not be valued the same as beating like the 25th ranked team at home, but that's still a top 25 win. Also, some of the things that they're doing, like, for example, this is the total helmet contest right now. So if you had Team A, they're 10-2, number 12 in strength of record. So that just evaluates based on all the metrics, how good your record is. And they lost to teams ranked number 39 and 51, with their best win being against team number 12. Team B is 10-2 with a number 14 strength of record, losses to number 50 and 59 with their best win against 18. So Team A has a better strength of record, their losses are better, and their best win is better. Neither of these teams will play in their conference championship games. Which one of those teams would you take in the playoff if you had to choose one?
Team A.
You're correct. That would be BYU, but they have absolutely no shot at getting in it as an at-large. Team B is Miami, but because they are the Miami Hurricanes, they will have a good shot at getting in, even though nothing on their resume should put them in above BYU. Now, I'm not going to be a Big 12 apologist and say that we should get like 3 teams in or something like that. But that process right there is where there's no data or statistical analysis that would tell you Miami is unequivocally more deserving. The committee watches the teams and says, I think this team looks good because I'm watching this game, and therefore they should be at this rank. And then they like backwards justify why they put teams where they did. I always get mad at people that say, yes, I could do this job. There's 2 things that I think I could actually do. One is be a color commentator for a basketball game, and 2 is be on the playoff committee, because I don't think it takes any talent to do the second one. Those guys have no idea what they're doing.
Clayton, you want to piggyback off that?
Yeah, I could not agree more with everything that Zyler said. The one thing that I want to hear their explanation is they dropped Miami right in between the 3-loss SEC teams. Like, I want to hear why they think that Miami is worse than Bama, but better than Ole Miss and South Carolina. How did you come up with that? Couldn't agree more about the BYU. Honestly, BYU, Iowa State, and Arizona State all getting shafted by the committee. Yep. I think it's ridiculous that Boise State is not just ahead of the Big 12 teams, but like significantly ahead. Yep. That right there shows that the committee can say all they want about the strength of schedule, but they really don't care. They just want you to win. They care about the win column unless you're in the SEC. And then, yeah,
there's no consistency. There's no consistency.
And they keep using this top 25 metric, but they're the ones who are putting in the top 25. So they're keeping Duke out. They're keeping Kansas State out.
Keeping Illinois, Missouri.
Because that would give these teams another top 25 win, but they got to make sure and, keep whatever they want. I don't know the specific teams off the top of my head to justify it. They have UNLV ranked ahead of Syracuse, though Syracuse beat UNLV on their home turf earlier this year. Literally, I mean, pretty much nothing about their rankings makes sense to me.
I have one other. Can I go on one tirade before Conrad?
Yes.
Okay. And I am not an Ole Miss apologist. I want them to lose. But the argument to have Bama ahead of Ole Miss is predicated on basically nothing. So Ole Miss is ranked higher in SP+. Alabama is behind them. If you want to talk about strength of schedule, that's the only thing that they have. The Tide have played the 17th toughest schedule, while Ole Miss has played 31st. It's a difference of about 1%, 98.97 versus 97.66. But when you talk about that, the teams that Ole Miss lost to, 7-5 Florida and 4-8 Kentucky, Alabama lost to teams ranked in SP+, number 8, 31, and 58 for an average of 32.3. Ole Miss teams the Ole Miss losses were ranked 17, 22, and 48 for an average of 29. So their losses were actually better than Alabama's. When you look at some of the wins, Ole Miss and Alabama both beat South Carolina head-to-head, but the Rebels absolutely killed South Carolina. The Tide won by 2. They also have the same best win against Georgia, but Alabama almost completely choked it away, where Ole Miss beat Georgia by 18. There's really no argument to have Bama in front of Ole Miss, except that Bama is Bama, and that would probably be better for ratings. I won't be sad when Ole Miss inevitably misses the playoff, but there's really not a great case for them to be ahead of Ole Miss.
Conrad, that leaves you, man.
Well, I don't really have anything to add because we have 2 eloquent master classes that are able to absolutely destroy the College Football Playoff Committee on our podcast. So College Football Playoff Committee, I don't know how you get on that, but if you want a real committee, you can ask the Broadway Shuffle and we'll be your committee next year. Or, as I have a question for both Clayton and Zyler, would you bring back the BCS over this system or lack thereof that we have now?
100%, without a doubt.
I would.
It would be better.
It'd be more fair.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, it's and this goes back to, I think it's all, and I'm still working this all out in my mind of how college sports has changed, but it always has been connected to money, but even more now. I mean, it's NIL, it's transfer portal, it's TV deals, it's TV rights, it's the SEC and ESPN having this massive deal that is the richest college football media rights deal in history. It's all these things combining together, and it's proving itself in the committee because all they want is the best brands in, so they can get the best viewership, so they can get the most watch games, so that their advertisers will pay them more, and all, on and on it goes. It's all about the money. It's all about that. It's not about fairness. It's not about parity anymore. It's all about the money. And so, yeah, we're still going to watch all the games because we love college football, but you see a different college football in this day and age that even you saw, 5 years ago.
Brennan, I thought you had a really good point earlier when we were offline talking about the playoff committee.
Yeah, I just feel like, to your point, it's going to be interesting. Ward Manuel was asked, if SMU loses to Clemson, would they automatically, are they guaranteed in? Like, do conference championship losses matter? And he was like, potentially. As in, like, okay, well, we'll see how bad they lose. And it's like, what if Georgia gets clapped by Texas? Like, my point is, we already know they're not going to do this. They're not going to judge SMU and Georgia equally. They're going to say that, well, Georgia beat Texas on the road and SMU has no big wins. But if you're going to bring a criteria of losses in conference championship games, dropping a team from 8 to 14 or 13, but dropping a team from 5 to 9, like Georgia they would just minimally drop if they lost to Texas.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And it's like, but then they'd be a 3-loss team and Bama would be a 3-loss team. And I know they'd have an extra game in conference championships. None of it really adds up to me, other than like to what you guys are saying. It's about the brands. I think the Bama Ole Miss debate is super interesting because a Bama enthusiast, and we know a couple, would say, well, Ole Miss's losses like Kentucky and stuff, but then Bama has the 6-6 losses, and as well. And like really, what's the difference between Vanderbilt and Kentucky? Like, not much.
Sure.
Like really not that much. And so it's like, if it's just what they're doing doesn't make sense. And the BYU thing, the Iowa State, Arizona State, with none of these teams being ranked in the top 12, like it just shows the discredit completely of what they think of the Big 12 too. And the fact that Boise State, Clayton, to your point, with really no key wins and them judging their success off of a loss, which is also anti what they talk about, and just automatically getting the 4 seed and discrediting what a potential Arizona State or Iowa State team did in a power conference. Like Boise played Hawaii. They almost lost to Wyoming. We know how that goes. It just doesn't make any sense. And either go to 2 teams or, dude, open it up. Like, do the Mike Leach 64 teams. You
can't do that.
No, I know, but like, just get it. Like, on my point is like, take away the debate and just stop BSing us. Like, we are not that dumb, and fan bases aren't that stupid. And to have these athletic directors, and I know it'd be great when we get to interview Kirby Hocutt to have him on the show and talk about what his time was like on the. He was on ESPN. Yeah. He was the selection committee chair for a time. And so he knows, and I think Kirby's an honest guy, and I think that Kirby probably fairly did what he could in a 4-team playoff, but how he would handle a 12-team playoff. And maybe he will again one day, but it's just, gosh, dude, it just is frustrating to watch. And, I just know, we know what's going to happen if Clemson beats SMU. Like, we just know what's going to happen.
I think it's interesting. I would personally rather see a 16 playoff than a 12-team playoff because I think it makes it more streamlined. But again, you can do what you want.
16?
6. I'm in the minority there. I know I am. I'd give the top 2 teams buys and then have the bottom 4 play. But actually, according to this committee, it'd probably be 6 SEC teams or 4 SEC teams.
Here's another thought: if 12, 13, 14, and 15 are that average, then would 16 through 20, would like 20 through 24 make that big a difference? Like, if you could add 4 more teams and split it up in divisions. And by the way, this is not even counting where they're trying to go with conferences, playing teams in the Big Ten. They would be happy if Georgia played a non-conference slate against Penn State, Clemson, and you name another school in the 9 SEC schools, and they went 8-4. But because it was a loss to Penn State and Clemson and Texas, getting in at 8-4. Like, they're trying to subsidize this into a power conference, and that's where this is going. And you just hope you, as Texas Tech and as a Big 12 school, can stay afloat. And the subtle messages they're already sending is, we don't consider you serious enough other than gifting you 1 automatic bid conference league. Like, we don't judge your conference, even though you had 7 teams go 8-4 and have 6-3 winner and guys compete. We don't judge this conference as a major level of success. because we don't even think that Arizona State or Iowa State is worthy of a bye.
Yep. Totally agree. They're trying to consolidate. You'll see it happen. And, ESPN is already in bed. Fox is in bed with the Big Ten.
It sucks.
None of those people will stop it. It's terrible.
And then you've got these guys like Reese Davis and Kirk Herbstreit and stuff talking like it's, like
who are employed by
by it, and trying to call it out. It's like
he had that tweet the other day that was like some teams that are under the radar that are having good seasons. It's like, buddy, you work for ESPN. You could just talk about these teams.
Yep.
Yeah.
The reason they're under the radar is because of you.
Yeah. Yep. It's just the whole thing is disgusting. It's like it's not fair. It infuriates me. And if I was a fan of one of the schools if I was Miami, like I'd be pissed because even Syracuse is ranked. Georgia Tech should have, like, literally you could almost give them half a credit, if you were basing like attendance being something and passing the test being the other, on beating Georgia, taking like a fumble away. We know what that's like from winning on the road against Georgia. Then what? So I'm not saying Miami necessarily deserves it over their wins compared to who Alabama's beaten, but their losses are not bad. Like, you can't give me the SEC bias and say, well, Georgia Tech, when they just beat one of your SEC darlings, theoretically could have.
Are you guys suggesting that media companies may have a bias for a selfish reason?
I haven't seen that anywhere else across America in the last several years. Okay. I'm starting to see it. Yeah, breaking news for those. I'm starting to see it in college.
That's why you need more unbiased reporting and intelligent conversation like you get at the Broadway Shuffle.
Which is why you come to a Texas Tech podcast where we are. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, to be fair, the SEC and the Big Ten do have the best teams. I'm not saying that those teams are not like they clearly have the best teams. One of the teams from those conferences is going to win the national title, but it's like Brennan said, not the unfairness, the pretension of fairness, where they're saying, "Oh no, it's this. We're doing this real cool committee thing where we're going to evaluate." It's like, no, it's all bullcrap. Like, none of us are falling for that. We don't buy that a bit. Like, here's the other thing that really chaps me is like, you'll hear a program like Ole Miss say, "Dude, if we would have been in the Big 12, we would have done X, Y, Z." It's like, brother, you are welcome to join the Big 12. Come here and run this conference. We will welcome you with open arms. You will not be turned away. Or the team that won the Big 12 last year actually came in and kind of dominated you guys. It's funny how that works. Joey had that tirade
3 times too. A&M and Missouri both dominated their divisions in that conference.
It's so frustrating that. And here's the thing that really bothers me is that teams like Mississippi State and Rutgers and Illinois and Vanderbilt are going to get this little ticket to ride in these like unbelievable conferences just because of a decision they made. Like, I mean, Arkansas is at least competent, but they're like in the same stratosphere as you. And they're going to get this ticket into the super conferences because they made a decision 120 years ago that somehow put them there. It's unbelievable.
If I was the ACC, after what happened last year, like, you think you'd almost be justified in being like, come on, guys. Like, again, you leave out 13-0. And when you leave out 13-0 Florida State, and that's another thing that is just peeves me. Like, you're talking about strength of schedule, taking care of your common opponent. What is a team that is in a Power 4 conference going undefeated? And this is, again, last year, but to bring it into this year, like going undefeated, taking care of their schedule and winning their conference championship, and you leave them out. And then it's like, okay, let's go to the next year. Let's add 8 more teams to solve the problem. That'll solve it. None of these people will know. They won't see what we're really doing behind the scenes. Oh, shoot, Miami lost to Syracuse. Same thing's going to happen. Except we'll give you one automatic bye, but the other teams that played in the conference, we're gonna leave them out too. And the Big 12 is gonna have that happen. It's just so dumb.
Think about Texas, like Arch or Quinn Ewers getting hurt, and them saying, "Well, you had a really great season, but you're just not the same without Quinn. You are now out of the playoff." They would never do that to Texas.
Yeah,
that would never happen.
Never. Funny thing though is the fact that Florida State literally sued the ACC because they said they were watering down the conference by adding SMU, and then Florida State had their worst season ever, and SMU's about to win the conference.
That is hilarious.
So, anyways, well, we'll be back on Monday.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, no, and we'll talk about it. We'll have Monday to talk about what happened over the weekend. We'll have plenty of Texas Tech news with the portal, with coaching changes, all this with the A&M as we look ahead to this weekend with A&M Texas Tech basketball. Zyler and I might be here for a live reaction Sunday afternoon, so check out that while Conrad and Clayton are enjoying hopefully a Red Raider victory of the Aggies. And then you can check out our normal schedule broadcasting Monday morning on the Broadway Shuffle, and find us on our YouTube channel at the Broadway Shuffle or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like this video and subscribe. It does help our channel. We are adding new listeners every day, and we look forward to you joining our community. So for Conrad, Clayton, and Zyler, boys, that was a lot of fun. Lots to get into here in the next several weeks as we inch towards portal season. So I'll see you guys next time around on the Broadway Shuffle. Wreck 'em Tech.